On this week's episode of the A to B podcast, I'm joined by Podge Henry. Having studied communications in DCU, Podge was extremely active in his college's clubs and societies before being elected DCU's welfare officer in 2017. Podge is currently a marketing assistant for the Jameson Graduate Programme, and today we'll be taking me through his time in DCU, as well as discussing the Jameson Graduate Programme and what exactly they mean when they say they're looking for someone with serious character. Hi Podge, how's it going?
Geez, Jack, that's a much better introduction than I ever do for my podcasts. I always mess up when I do my introductions. So fair play to you. How are things? Thanks for having me on.
No worries. I'm very happy to have you on, and yeah, things are going good. I suppose I've only started recently recording interviews again. A lot of them were pre-recorded, and now college and assignments are starting to build up. So it's definitely getting a bit, I suppose, tight with time and things. But yeah, just trying to motor on with it, you know.
Yeah, of course. Sure. Look, it's a weird time for everyone, isn't it? This whole COVID monarchy, which we all thought would be over in 2 weeks' time, and now that's 7 months ago, with no signs of it stopping.
It is. Yeah, no, and I think it's weird because every now and again I see the odd like news article saying like, oh, we're one bit closer to the cure or vaccine, and I'm just like, yeah. By the time they even find something, like my sister, she's a science teacher, she said it would like take almost a year for it to even be passed by different like authorities and things that would have to go through so much different testing and stuff.
Yeah.
Podge, you're originally from Clara in County Offaly.
I am, yeah. Home of Shane Lowry and the Cowan brothers.
Oh, very good. Well, what was life like growing up in Offaly? I've never been. Is there much to do there?
I wouldn't go, to be honest. If you've never been, you're not missing out on much. No, like growing up was normal. I had quite a nice childhood in terms of my parents were comfortable enough financially that we were never stuck for money, and that was always nice. And we, like any child, we went away on holidays and stuff like that. So I had a nice childhood, I suppose. Thinking about secondary school, I was actually talking about this last night. It's quite funny because I was talking to Michael Fry about this. As a like kid, I would have been very much into like the arts and the creative side and like singing and dancing and musicals. But the issue was Clara is a very rural, kind of sport driven focused place. And kind of that whole sticking to the status quo type, which I like to think now with like social media and TikTok and all this and how much kind of we progress forward, that's not the case anymore. But growing up, I was very much kind of reluctant to be as I suppose dramatically focused in terms of the arts. So that was always kind of something that it's just funny that you mentioned that, because we were talking about that yesterday. But I definitely did have a lovely childhood, and like as much as Clara and Offaly isn't exactly hopping, I still love my town and I love where I'm from, and there is that real sense of, I suppose, patriotism for the place, even though there's not much to be banging on about.
That's fair enough. You worked in you worked in Sintra there for a bit, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So back at Central Clara was my first ever real job. It's kind of funny because like my punctuality skills, as you probably know, aren't the best. So I was always, me and my boss at the time always had this sort of unspoken rule where I was always 5 minutes late, but then I would always stay an extra half an hour or like an hour if needs be to do whatever jobs need to get done. But it was just funny because I was just always late, always.
It's funny you say that, because I also grew up in a kind of rural area, and in primary and secondary school, whereas all my friends would be mad into GAN soccer, I was mad into like superheroes, unfortunately, comic books, which didn't really translate well. And I worked in the local Daybreak, which would have been like a kind of garage in Delhi. And when you kind of reference being late, on 2 occasions when I was supposed to open the shop, I slept in and never shut up. So there was actual people like waiting. I was getting phone calls. It's like, Jack, where are you? Shop's supposed to be open an hour ago. So yeah, I didn't stay on there for too long.
Yeah. I think one of the funny things is though, like in those rural towns, when we talk about like being very focused on something that isn't the norm in terms of like sports and football, I think certainly the more I've grown older, I've noticed that as a child or like as a teenager, I'd be like, oh, I would have loved to have done so and so, but it's just not accepted around here or something like that's what the mindset I was. Whereas now I realize it was actually my own fault for caring what people thought.
Mm.
And as you get older, you realize the less you care about people's opinions, the less they actually care about what you do.
Mm.
Typically, if you ever get like slagged or something like that, it's just kind of for a reaction, because people like to tease people, and if you don't give that reaction, then no one really gives a crap at all. That's something that it took me 25 years to realize, which I wish I had realized at the age of, would say, 16 or 17. But I mean, like, yeah, again, like I loved growing up with Clara, and I love going home there. And it's quite funny, because when I get angry or if I get upset, my Clara nuances and accent really comes out strong, and it's just really funny when that kind of happens, because no matter where you go, you'll always, you can take the man out of Clara, but you can't take Clara out of the man, and stuff like that.
It's gonna be on your headstone.
Yeah.
Your gravestone.
Jeez, I hope not.
Yeah, you never know. It'll actually make it even more tricky to be buried in Clare. Like, can't take the man out of Clare anymore.
Yeah, jeez, that's very grim to be thinking about.
I'm sorry. No, perfect. I suppose I have it here in my notes. I made a kind of a small little reference. You're a bit like Connell from Normal People, just that you're not from Sligo and you didn't go to Trinity, but you did move from I suppose a rural area up to Dublin.
Yeah, now you mentioned that I'm not from Sligo, but funny enough, that's where I wish I was from. Sligo is my home away from home, and it's without a doubt, once I get the permission of my future wife, it is where I'll be moving and settling down and having a family and having kids. It is by far, in my opinion, the most beautiful spot in Ireland. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Is it?
Yeah, I love. See, it's funny because when I went to college, I was the only one, bar two girls in my year, who went to DCU, but they done nursing, which was very hands-on course, a lot of hours, and it's one of those courses where you're spending so much time in the classroom, you typically make friends with girls in that same classroom. Or was it nursing? But the course they done was very like hours focused, so they made friends with people in their course. Whereas the course I done, communications, was 9 hours long, so I didn't really have much time in the lecture hall. So I kind of had to make friends in my accommodation complex. And the friends that I ended up making at the start were all from Sligo, and then their friends, when they came in the next year, like the year below, I became really close with that year of Sligo friends. And now it just transpires that I actually know more people from Sligo than I actually do from home, which is really strange because I'm not from there.
Have you been to Sligo much?
Yeah, oh god, yeah, no, I've been to Sligo countless times. I actually went down there for a week during the lockdown to live with my friend. And it's funny because, like, a coastal country, or coastal county, makes such a world of difference, I think, just in terms of like getting out and fresh air and stuff like that. Whereas awfully we have a bog, and that's really the height of it.
Did you go to the bog much as a young lad?
I think they used to bring me out, but I wasn't really one for foot and turf, so then they just stopped. I wasn't really a man for labour, and I think they realised that very soon, and I'd be more kind of dancing on the turf as opposed to footing it. So they kind of quickly stopped bringing me places like that. But I still appreciate the scenery when I drive by.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant. I suppose you just mentioned there that you studied communications in DCU. What I'd like to know is how did you come to picking communications? What were your interests in secondary school, or how did that CA process go for you?
Yeah, very, very good question, because I think with me, the course was picked for me by my mother.
Okay.
And she didn't really give me a say in the matter, because we were looking up CAO courses, and she was like, "Oh, this one." Actually, I think a friend of mine had it down in their CAO, and I was like, "Oh, I'll put that down because you're putting that down." And then I didn't want it, but then my mom actually looked at the course and said, "It actually suits you to the ground." And I was like, "No, I'm going to Limerick to do business with all my friends." And then she was like,
Mm-hmm.
"No, you're not." And I said, "I am." And she said, "You're not." And I said, "I am." And she said, "I'm paying." And I said, "Fair, touche." So she put it down, and she was right. Like, I think it was funny because it was, like, again, that mindset of I wasn't really looking towards the future or what I wanted to do. I just wanted to go where all my friends were going. I thought business was for me just because it was like a steady subject. But thankfully, she said to, "Look, go to Dublin, and if you need to be, you can change or whatever." As a grand, I'll give it a shot. And really, really thankful she did. A, because the course was great, it really suited me, and B, because I was the only one, as I mentioned, who went up. Uh,
Mm.
Sorry, as I was one of the only few who went up, but I was very much kind of on my own at the start. It forced me to kind of step out and make new friends, which is something that I've always been very grateful for. But even like when I looked in this, like when my mom was going through, I make her sound like a monster by saying she forced me to do it. But we were going through it, and the modules and stuff really kind of suited my interests. Where there was like content creation, and there was communication, presentation, performance. A 10 credited module all about presenting. And there was modules on analyzing advertising, and it's very media
Wow.
focused too. And there's a lot of opportunities you could go down post that program. So like you could go into marketing, you could go into PR, you could go into radio, television, and there are so many people who've done these career progressions in different areas and different industries that it really was probably the perfect course for me, thankfully.
What kind of modules did you kind of, I suppose, enjoy most, reflecting back on your time there?
So for me, certainly the content creation ones were definitely my best performing. Certainly without needing
Hmm.
any external help. So I've dyslexia and ADHD, so I was qualified to get some help. And certainly with my assignments, my mother always sort of helped me proofread and kind of write my assignments, and I'd send stuff over to her, and she was very like just good at stuff like that. But the content creation stuff is just it came to me very naturally, and I've always been a very kind of creative person. So when doing stuff like that, that was probably my most highest performing in terms of my own ability. But certainly, like you study. Jeez, it's been so long ago now, but
Yeah, like, did you get trained up in any software like Adobe or anything like that, or?
yeah, so you do. So there's 4 practical modules you do in second and third year. Second and third year, it's a 3-year degree, and second and third year are equally percentaged. And
Oh wow.
in second and third year, there's 4 modules that you split 2 and 2, and there's video production, audio production, photography, and communication, presentation, performance, and they're all the practical modules you do. So you get trained up in Premiere Pro, Photoshop, Adobe. What's the sound one? The Adobe Sound, whatever that
Uh,
is.
yeah, Adobe Sound. That's what it's called. Yeah.
And yeah, that one. And then you do like a module on communication and like presenting and standing up and presenting to class and stuff like that. So
Brilliant.
that was probably my best in terms of just ability. But I
Mm.
really found like analyzing advertising and film and TV. There's a module of film TV where you kind of study TV shows or certain films and the impact they have on people. And I think those are really, really, I found them incredibly interesting. While I can't remember a thing from them now, I do remember the very few lectures I went to, you'd be sitting there being like, that's actually really, really interesting.
It's like
So I think,
watching. It's like watching Looper on YouTube all day long or something.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of like, but like, analyzing
Cinema sins or something.
stuff like that. Well, a bit.
Sounds great.
But like yeah, like you just kind of analyze different advertising and how people do it, and mockumentaries and the purpose of them and the impact certain like television has had on political and um, cultural, I suppose, revolutions in the last couple of years. And it was just really, really interesting because as someone who has a big interest in TV and film and YouTube, it's great to be able to like understand the purpose behind these, even though I don't remember anything. But it was a very interesting course, and as I mentioned, like people can go down so many different routes from it, and that was probably one of the more kind of desirable things for me, was the ability to not have to know exactly what I want to do and have different options, and you can go into a few different masters if I want to from doing that course.
Okay. Do you recall what type of masters were available at the time? Or...
I mean, like, there's so many. Like, there's people who've gone into PR. There's people who've gone into marketing and business and e-commerce. It was a very broad course, which was great, and it was very highly regarded too. Certainly in like America and stuff like that. Like we had a lot of international students who would come over
Wow.
from America, so it was a pretty well-known degree. Um, like I probably will never do a master's, but it was great to have that option. And again, it was great to do a course that you genuinely find interesting when you're in it.
And that's great because you're saying as well, with it being 9 hours a week mostly, you had that, I suppose, spare time, which you said you spent with friends, but you were also extremely involved with definitely societies. I'm not too sure if there was any clubs, but you would have been quite involved with those in college.
Yeah, 100%. And like I think with communications, you find that clubs and societies is rampant with communication students. Like it is,
Mm.
it might as well be on our degree. In fact, actually, we can do in final year. There's a module called the UNE module that you can do, and for certain courses and communications with one of them, it's accredited module based on extracurricular activities that you do.
Nice.
So for us, that was incredible. And yeah, I mean, for first and second year, I was sort of in the ether of clubs and societies, and I was, getting involved and doing some one or two events because I really enjoyed.
Hmm.
In college, you get to realize that no one really cares what you do, and everything's just a bit of crack at the end of the day, no matter how, you know, no matter how weird or obscure it is. There's not really much judgment. It's just more you're in a community of people who are all doing it for a bit of crack too.
Hmm. Mm.
So I was kind of involved, and like, people could call on me to do events, but then it was in third year where I actually joined committees, and I kind of got a bit more involved and kind of in tune with the student clubs and societies and kind of student union life.
What committees were they that you joined in third year?
Yes, so I was the Accounting and Finance Society, and the Enterprise Society was the ones I was on in third year. Not really big into my enterprise myself,
Mm.
or my accounting or finance, but they were the big societies that ran the big events, and they were a bit of crack. But certainly, actually funny enough, one of my friends, Connor, at the time was involved in a society called Enactus, which is a social enterprise society.
Hmm.
And I've always liked kind of helping and doing volunteer work and charitable work, even when in secondary school. And he said, listen, and I didn't know what an actus was. And he said, honestly, go for this committee. You'll enjoy it. It's really good. Like, it's not just, you're off to a ball, or it's not just putting on, these fun events for everyone to get drunk at.
Mm.
So I went to the meeting and I joined. I didn't even know what an actus was at the time. And then I got involved, and there was a social enterprise society, and that very much became kind of my best. Certainly, it was by far the best committee I've ever joined. But it certainly became my biggest focus, certainly in this second half of second year, because I really really enjoyed what they were doing, and it was cool to kind of get a sense of enterprise and kind of a business aspect of something, and starting companies from the ground up, but also giving back and helping people. And I really really enjoyed that, and there was a really lovely sense of community that people who were involved in the committee are still really close today.
Mm.
So I joined that, and that kind of became certainly probably my most valued. Not that not that I didn't have fun in the other committees, and I made some great friends from them too. But just in terms of what I did, I was very heavily involved, more so in an actress than the other two. Um, yeah, so
Definitely.
it was certainly it was a great. You realize just how fun clubs and societies can be, and I suppose how important they are to student life, which is kind of sad for students this year in university, because they really, certainly for someone like me, they
Mm.
really kind of helped me, I suppose, not to be too cliche, but like find myself and what my interests were, and certainly gave me the ability to open up and be more extroverted, the kind of extrovert that I knew I was in the first place.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. It was probably one of the pinnacle parts of my college experience. Not just for like making friends, but also for personal growth too.
No, definitely. I think their first year is probably one of the most probably I would say final year is important as well. But in the greater scheme of things, your first year in college is probably one of the most important, because it's really where you kind of like you said, you find yourself. That like that first week of college, and I'm sure maybe next year when they go into second year they'll get some sort of an induction week. But like
Mm.
the friends you'd make, especially in your first year of college, like you really carry those for life, I would say.
Yeah,
So
yeah, 100%.
def- it's definitely a pity. But with Enactus, you guys saw some great success when I suppose during your time with Enactus, and you even got to travel. You got to reach some high up competitions. I want to say a semi final or a final.
Yeah, so we were actually the World Cup is what it's so every country, there's so many different countries that have an enacted society,
Mm.
and every year each country holds the national competition. Obviously, so for us it would have been amongst the other universities with enacted societies,
Hmm.
and then whoever wins the national competition goes on to represent their country in the World Cup.
Jeez.
And it's great. Now, some countries certainly Enactus is much kind of more funded than
Yeah.
ours. I know for, geez, off the top of my head, this is just a rough guesstimate, but I remember, like, you have to have like a total profit and, impacts had on communities and stuff. I think our net profit was like, I think it was something like, was it 60 grand or something, which was
Wow.
huge in comparison to all the other Enactus in DCU. But then you
Mm,
compare it to Enactus, the Canadian winners, and theirs was 2.4 million. So,
Jesus.
huge difference in terms of, and I think a lot of their Enactus societies are actually credited modules and part, towards their degree. But yeah, so we got to go over to London the first year to represent Ireland, Ireland in the Enactus World Cup. That was really good fun, and it was really cool to see like all the different like things people were doing um, for social enterprise, and it was just a really cool experience, and it was also very, very fun. And then my year in the Students' Union, I still kept involved in Enactus,
Mm,
and they actually won again that year,
wow.
and we went to Silicon Valley in America, which again was really, really cool, and it was a really great experience to be able to, represent your university over in the US of A. So yeah, no, it was cool. It was cool to be able to do something like that, and for, putting work in, and having it, come out, and being able to, like, represent your country.
What exactly would you have been responsible for in the Enactus Society? Because I know you did a lot of video for them.
That was really my forte. I mean, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
the biggest enterprise head on me at all. So yeah, that was where I was the PRO, public relations officer. So I done the video and the graphics for the society. And then, like, of course, I'd go to like the events, or we used to have a thing called Head Starts for those with intellectual disabilities would come
Mm.
to us once a week, and we do arts and crafts with them, and it was really fun. And like, the whole committee would go to that. But in terms of the enterprise side, not I wouldn't. They definitely shouldn't have. I'm glad they didn't trust me with any of that, because I could have accidentally rent to the ground. But I was the PRO, and I done like the videos and stuff like that. And again, it was a great way, because it was a great opportunity for me to, do some volunteer work. Really good to get an insight into social enterprise, and I suppose enterprise as a whole, but utilize the skills that I have to actually
Mm.
add value to the society.
Definitely hone in on your skills and also develop them for yourself. Because I've actually looked at a few of the videos. They're quite good. What I'd like to know is, I suppose, when or where did you discover your creativity?
I suppose I think YouTube. That's actually, I've never been asked that. I don't know where my creativity has come from. I was always very like into music, which is something that I kind of stopped doing so much anymore. But I was into like music and sort of like making my own music and kind of songs and stuff. So I always kind of had a creative side to me, and my family's very creative.
Mm.
Certainly my mother's side as well, in terms of, well, like, my father's side's very sports orientated, so in a way you could call that some form of creativity, being able to read a ball. But my mom's side's very creative as well. I mean, like, half her brothers and sisters are musicians and actors, and so I think it was always in the family. And then I wouldn't have been very big into TV. We were one of those households that had RT1, 2, 3, and TG Caher, and that's about it. So when we got the internet, I started like going on YouTube a lot more, and I originally started in like watching videos like machinima, like the gaming videos, as every 16-year-old does. But then as I sort of progressed with YouTube and started to kind of discover content creators like Casper Lee or Joe Sugg, and then like, Dan Mace, as we mentioned earlier on, and like, Casey Neistat, and these people whose videos were really entertaining, but edited in such a really cool, artistic, and creative manner. And I
Of
think
course.
that's the first sort of memory I have of being like, that's really cool, I want to do that. And then in college, when we were doing these modules and courses, actually the first video I ever made that I think that's ever been up on YouTube was, we went on a trip to Amsterdam, me and a few of my friends in second year college, and I just recorded some shots on my phone, and then I edited it together using iMovie on my MacBook. And
I did the exact same thing. It's on my Instagram channel. That's so weird.
I remember I thought, this video is amazing. It's going to go viral. I think I sent it to Joe.e, and looking back, it was horrendous, but it was very in like timing with the music that was added to it. And that's something
Yeah.
that I think, if you look back at my videos, is something that's kind of recurring, is I kind of more focus my videos around the music and the kind of beat and stuff like that.
Mm.
But it was my first video I made, and then I think I made another one, and then after then I kind of had access to like you're allowed like rent out cameras and stuff as part of the communications department at DCU, and like you'd have to make a few different videos for modules and stuff like that, and I kind of done it a bit more and more, and then I was editing bits, as I said, for Enactus and stuff, and then before I finished DCU, I bought a camera, and then I made my like American video and my brother's wedding video, and like before I knew it, I was kind of like down, like I was using Premiere Pro a bit more and looking up, tutorials on YouTube and kind of honing in on the craft a little bit more. But it was definitely watching YouTube and watching certain creators and being fascinated by how they edit and how they kind of
Mm. The process
and how they make this amazing piece of kind of art that was, and also like how it kind of balanced out and worked alongside the music as well. That's something that I always loved as well. So that's probably like where
Well,
I first started
it's
to
kind of mad that
really realize. Yeah.
No, you cut off there. Sorry.
Oh,
I thought
sorry.
you
No,
finished.
that was it. It was just it was YouTube that I first kind of realized my creative instinct, or I suppose my desire to be creative.
Well, I was going to say that's really nice, but almost shocking in a way as well. Because whereas when you were doing your leaving cert, and you had kind of, I suppose, plans, you wanted to go to UL to do business. Could you imagine having to be there for 4 years, sitting modules like sustainable business, corporate relations, accounting, finance? But yeah, when you say that your mother was saying that this course was right for you, it obviously was. Because you're really kind of showing your creative side there, and yeah, it's just mad to if she had let you kind of go ahead with it and have picked business, yeah, you definitely would not be.
I would say I probably would have dropped out at some stage.
Yeah.
I would like to think I would have always ended up back here in some way, shape, or form in terms of like content creation, or like making some videos or being able to utilize my creativity.
Mm.
But what I definitely wouldn't have had those 3 to 4 years where I've made my best friends and I've kind of grown immensely as a person and sort of got to experience the world, and thankfully I'm well aware of my privilege, a lot better than some people have, in terms of not only like not like just financially or anything, but also some people go to college and have an awful time or just having a so time. For me it was by far the best time of my life so far. So I
Mm.
am always grateful that she kicked the foot down and said that's where you're going, end of.
Has to be done sometimes.
That's it.
I think that the fact that you had such a good time in college is definitely reflected in the fact that you ran for welfare officer after your third year.
I did.
Yeah. Can I
um,
ask why did you run for it? Why did you? Because like for me, it's like stay an extra year in college. No thanks. I already repeated my leaving cert. I'm as soon as I graduate, I'm done.
Yeah, I forgot.
How
I
come?
actually, I repeated fifth year myself and still done TY. So I was in
Oh
school
my god.
7 years as well.
How
Yeah. So
come? How can I ask? How come you repeated fifth year? It's an interesting year to repeat.
I think because I didn't really do anything my first year, fifth year, and because I was never particularly bold, but I was very
Hmm.
lazy when it came to academics. Just aren't my strong suit. Never have been.
Hmm.
So I was never bold, and no one ever. So I never caused trouble. So it's not as if people noticed I wasn't doing, my work.
Mhm.
But then when it came to like the first week in sixth year, and I was doing accounting, which I was absolutely atrocious at, and you're going into these subjects, and they're like, right, well, this is what we've all covered last year, so that's all ticked off the box, and this is what we're coming this year. And I remember being like, I don't remember any of this, and I wanted to study music, and I hadn't done it for the junior cert, but I wanted to do it because I knew I would be good at it. And
Mm.
the music teacher at the time in the school, Lauren Dignan, who's to this day I still say is one of the best music teachers in the Irish education system. But she said like it's doable in a year, but it'll just be very tough. And I was already struggling with a lot of other subjects, so I just bit the bullet and said, listen, I'm just going to repeat fifth year, change my subjects, and thankfully I did, because music was my best subject in the leaving cert. So that's why I repeated. But certainly towards the end of sixth year, I was itching to get out, and I didn't care what way I was going. And funny enough, in hindsight, I look back and I should have just barred the whole music situation. But I should have just done my leaving cert. I went into a PLC college because there's such a taboo about doing a PLC course, and we had a really good PLC school in Moat where I went to school, and I could have gone straight into communications from that either. But look, listen, I'm happy with the route I did go down. But yeah, that's why I repeated to change the subjects.
That's great. I think I was much more of a coward when it came to repeating myself. Now, fortunately, I'd never done TY. And myself and my friend Barry, who also repeated with me, which I think is probably one of the only reasons. We stuck around for an extra year. All of our friends went ahead, and we stayed on together. We bit the bullet, but we used to say to each other, if because we were repeating. And I was repeating, and I was still failing exams left, right, and I was still failing everything. I'd done foundation for my first leaving cert, which is something I have. I'm surprised I've even said that in the podcast. But I did foundation maths, and then when I went back to repeat, I did ordinary. And I was failing exams left, right, and center. I remember the principal and the vice principal would take me into the office and say, like, "Look, Jack, have you ever considered an apprenticeship?" I was like, "No." I said, I'm going to college. Like, I'm getting the points. Don't worry about it. I'll be fine." And then I was being pulled in by the career guidance counselor. I failed the mocks for maths, and they were like, "Look, Jack, like you're gonna have to do something here." But to get to the point, myself and Barry said that if either one of us had to have spent one more year in secondary school, that we'd be having our breaks in the staff room. Like we I think Barry was like 22 years of age at the time. No, sorry, he definitely wasn't 22. Jesus.
Yeah, I was like, Jesus, that's very old.
I think there was teachers there who were 22, but no, he was definitely. I think Barry was 19 or 20. I would have been, yeah, I would have been around. Yeah, he turned 20 in the March of repeating his leaving cert. So he was very old. And what made it worse was he was in ag science he was in fifth year ag science because the sixth year class couldn't take him. So he repeated with the fifth years instead. So he'd be like inside the room with 16-year-olds in fifth year or 17-year-olds who just come out of TY. He was 20 years of age, like.
Jeez, that's the funny thing about the Irish, and this is what I really hate about the Irish education system is like, and listen, I'm sure every education system has its issues, but with us, like, there's no, it's just a regurgitation of who is the best memory for subjects you have no interest in,
Yeah.
and even like one thing I always envied was the British or American model where you do have subjects such as like drama, or like photography or film, because sure, by the age of 16 you're definitely well aware of what your interests are. So that's one thing I always despise about the Irish education system. But I'm no minister for education, so I don't know how to change it, and I'm not going to
Yeah,
add my input to it.
I think it's a podcast topic entirely on its own. But one thing I will say is because I have a younger sister now, Ella. She's 15. She's in fifth year. She rang me yesterday. She was desperately upset. She's like, "Oh, Michelle, my older sister." She rang her. She's like, "Michelle said I'm not going to get my course. I'm not going to go to UL. I'm not going to do science. I'm not going to get the points." And I said to her, "Yeah, you mightn't." And she's like, "What?" I was like, "Look," I was like, "Michelle did the exact same thing to me, and it's the best thing she ever did." My sister made me cry so many times when I was repeating. I really was. I was acting. I was acting the fool. But like I said it to the one thing about repeating sixth year is, and I definitely would do that 100 times more than repeating fifth year. Repeating fifth year is great because you get to start from the ground up again, and try and keep up. But the great thing was when I went back and repeated my leaving cert, despite having failed maths left, right, and center. Yeah, fair enough. The confidence that I gained because it's like, like when you're playing, God, like playing PlayStation and you're doing a mission and you fail it and you go back the second time to do it, it's 100 times easier. Because where, I don't know, if I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima at the moment, like, where the enemies are, where the cart is, like all the different entrances, like you get that second chance. So when it came for me doing my leaving cert, I knew exactly what the papers were going to be like. I knew exactly how they're going to be laid out. And we've completely rambled there, haven't we? Well, I have. But yeah, no, the leaving cert is a disgrace. We'll leave it at that. Look, I suppose being cautious of time, the welfare officer, how come you ran for that badge?
So I think in my head I always had the idea of the students' union. Certainly in first year, and I think that was more from an ego point. President would sound cool, but then as I got more heavily involved in the club and societies and kind of seeing the work that the Students' Union did, and what it was their roles were, it certainly became much more kind of it was much more interesting to me in terms of the actual job itself. And then in my second year of college, I struggled with my mental health. I think everyone does at some stage or another, and I kind of I didn't understand why I was, because I had this kind of picture perfect college life of, I had a girlfriend at the time. I was doing great, and my results were good, and I had all this amazing social life. I didn't really know what was going on in my head. And like thankfully, like the student support and development, like all colleges, they're there to help you, and they certainly did. And then in my final year of college, I didn't feel like I was ready to leave. And I think often people think that's a bad reason to run for the students' union, but I think it's a good reason. I don't think you should ever run if you want to leave, because you need to want to still be there, in order to have the best impact you can. And I certainly wanted to give back more than, because in my eyes, I had taken as much as I possibly could from this university, in terms of like my social life, in terms of my degree, my career, and everything else. So I wanted to do my little part to ensure that as many people as possible come in can kind of have that same experience. Maybe not the same exactly carbon copy experience, but come out thinking that their college experience was as good as it could be. And I had all these ideas as well for running, and I think when I thought, and I became very kind of, I suppose, interested in mental health, and certainly from my own experiences. And I think when I just kind of realized what it is I would like to achieve, I realized that was in the remit of the welfare officer. So I met with Cody Byrne, who was the welfare officer at the time, and he was very helpful and kind of told me what the role was. And then I ran, and thankfully I ran a successful campaign, and I won. And yeah, I mean, it was a very tough year. Very funny when you get into the students' union and you kind of realize, when you're part of that kind of web of decision making within the university, you realize just how big it is, and kind of how small in a way. Um, you it's kind of, well, not so much small, but how much more layers there is when it comes into decision making, and how every decision, in the long run, is for the greater good of the student experience. However, in the short term, it mightn't look like that to the students. So it was a very, like, listen, as it would have been. It's a very difficult year. It took on a lot of heavy stuff, both personally and professionally. But it was one of the best years I've had, and certainly in terms of like growth as a person, that's definitely where I excelled, in my 25 years, and kind of learned a lot, from it, and definitely one of a year I'll never forget, and I'll never ever take back. And it was a lovely wrap up to my time in DCU. I mean, towards the end of my year as a welfare officer, I was definitely looking towards running for the president, but I definitely realized, no, I actually want to leave, and I think the fact that I want to leave, I need to go. But yeah, no, it was an incredible year, and it was really, really, really fun. Done so many great things. Thankfully, got to leave behind a legacy too, which is something that not many people get to do. My DCU is now an official venue for Darkest into Light, which was something that I'd set up, and we now have a yearly consent workshop as well called the Smart Consent Project, which is something that I set up as well. A lot now. Again, I say I set up. There's the ego, but it was with a whole other bunch of people, and it wasn't me on my own at all. But it's just nice to have that. It's nice to be able to go back, and I do Darkest into Light. Well, I had done. It was cancelled this year, but I'd done Darkest into Light the next year in DCU, and it was twice as big. And the girl who took my reins, Ashleen, had made it way better than I ever could, and it was just nice to see it grow and see that happen. And yeah, like, it was an incredible year, and something that I've definitely taken, and learned so much from.
I'm interested in the policies. I suppose, like, what kind of things were you focused on? What were the issues in DCU at the time? Just briefly, because there's one thing I've noted here, that you would have kind of, I suppose, had anything with the library fees in DCU.
Well, I mean, like, here's the funny thing. I had this manifesto, and when I got into the role, I realized that manifesto might as well have been burnt, because I
Yeah.
can't achieve any of these, and there was just completely wishful thinking without actually realizing, because I didn't actually know the ins and outs of DCU and how it worked.
Mm.
The library fees for me, geez, it was so far ago, I cannot remember what was actually on my manifesto. I'm pretty sure I didn't complete it either, which sounds awful, but I mean, I wasn't the thing about the Students' Union as well is you're not really being elected based on your policy. It's all about your campaign, and
Hmm.
that's which is kind of sad in one way, but I think it's just once you get in, you have to realize what you can achieve, and I was certainly tried to use myself as, I suppose, a puppet for the student
Yeah.
voice. So what I did was when I went in, realized some of these things I could achieve, and I could help with, and other things I knew weren't realistic. So what was the best way to utilize my time? And it was by listening to students who know more about certain social issues, or certain, student issues that are going on within the university. So I met up with like different societies, and even the Smart Consent workshop that came
Mm.
into fruition because of FEMSOC. I approached them and said, is there anything you want me to do? And they said, listen, we'd love to do something around consent, and that's where that kind of stemmed from. So I think when you go into it, and I think it happens every year. You look at people's manifestos, and it sounds amazing, and then they get into the job and think, "Oh, that is not possible at all. I don't know what the hell I was thinking." But it's just all about being able to identify that, and then be able to achieve what you can, and listen throughout
Hmm.
the year, because the year is always changing. The universities are always changing. So making sure that you're kind of up to date with what's going on and listening to the student voice.
And I suppose you would have finished up then of May-ish 2018. What happened then?
The 18th of June 2018. I know, I remember the date specifically. Sorry, the
Very good.
28th of June. Sorry, 28th. Yeah, then, as I said, listen, it was a tough year, and it took a lot on. And I wasn't the best at looking after myself throughout the year, and I definitely knew I needed to leave. So me and four of my mates went to America for 6 to 7 weeks, and it was a great. It was a great. It was just your average road trip, but it was great to just leave the country and kind of get that all out.
I didn't get my J1 this summer, so I'm going to listen to you talk about yours if that's okay.
That's well, I done too. I went to New York for a summer, but I went by myself, and at the time, I kind of ruined it for myself, and I didn't make friends more than I should have. But it was the second time round when I went to the West Coast with the lads, and we went on a road trip, and it was just incredible because it was a complete escape. It was a complete, I just got to just shut off from everything that happened the last year, and even the 3 years prior to that in DCU, and it was just really fun going around, living on people's couches. We didn't organize any accommodation. We just went from city to city and hoping for the best from the goodwill of people who we'd write to. And it was just one of those things where you're looking back and going, that was such a fun 6 weeks, and I think it was well needed and well deserved too.
Any wacky stories, I suppose, from essentially couch surfing for a whole summer?
Uh I mean, I got arrested in Mexico, which is one that I won't go into detail. It's not something
I,
that
I, I didn't find that in your LinkedIn. Jesus.
no, yeah, that is not my LinkedIn. But like it, and what else? There's just some our 4th of July was absolutely nuts, and there's just like so many little stories that you can think about at the top of our heads that I don't know if I'd be I'd be allowed to mention in this from the lads, but there's definitely a few. And
Yeah.
again, I think the best thing about it is like we met a lot of new people, and like as I said, we were
Yeah.
going from city to city, just writing into these group chats or these like Facebook J1 groups, being like anyone would take 4 Irish lads on, and so many places did that. And I
Mm.
think that's what I love most about it, because you're just going around. It's like you're bagpacking with three of your best friends, just meeting a whole lot of other people and just getting on with them and making new friends. And I think that's what I love most about it.
Yeah, and not to drag down the mood too much, but like you just saying all that now, like it sounds like fiction. It's crazy, just going into random people's gaffs and sleeping, and Jesus, like just even traveling in general, leaving
Yeah,
the country. It sounds bizarre.
I'm very grateful for what I had, especially considering students nowadays who won't get that for God knows how long. So yeah, I'm thanking my lucky stars.
Brilliant. Well, look, I suppose just to move on a bit. January 2019, you uploaded the video for the Jameson Graduate Programme. But before you did that, and after you returned home from America, you worked briefly, or so as for a small stint with your mother in the college, right?
Yeah, so I came back home and I had gone to EP like everyone did. And after EP, I realized all my friends were going back to college, or some of them were doing a master's, some of them were moving away, and I was left home. And I had a bit of a panic attack, thinking, "What am I doing?"
Mm.
And then after a few days of moaning and about and feeling like I was lost, I remember I wrote to my sister, and I was feeling very, very down. It's the kind of source more so my mental health as well wasn't the best. And I kind of wrote to my sister, and I felt very lost. And she was like, "Listen, don't worry. I felt the exact same last year." And my mother wanted me to work in the local PLC college, and I wasn't really up for it because I felt like it would have been a step back. And my sister
Hmm.
was like, "No, stop being stupid. Like, I done that last year, and now I'm on my graduate program. Honestly, just do it." So after a few weeks, look, I did do it, and thankfully there was another girl who'd done it at the same time as me, a good friend of mine, one of my best friends. So that was nice to have her.
Great.
And yeah, so it's just kind of spent the year working as an educational support, and I suppose like working with people with special needs in the college and kind of helping them with their assignments and stuff. And then that was 9 to 4. It was a 9 to 4 job, so I'd be home relatively early, and then I kind of got to focus on. That's when I started making videos, and that's when I started like doing
Mm.
podcasts. And I suppose it was a very, very important year for me because that's when all that sort of kind of came to fruition, and it was much more kind of prevalent in my life as opposed to the bits and bobs I was doing for societies. And so I was very, in hindsight, taking that job at home was great, and like the staff were amazing, and it was nice being at home for a bit. And my best friend from home, Muller was his name. When I was in college, I rarely saw him, and while we were still, I'd still just be able to walk into his house and raid his fridge and leave whenever I wanted. That relationship was still there. I just hadn't seen much of him. So it's nice when you go home and you get to see like these people who you haven't seen in so long, kind of rekindle, I guess. And then, as I said, I started doing that, the content creation, which had a huge part. And then that year kind of had a huge part in me getting the graduate program I'm now, the Jameson International Graduate Program. And that's kind of, so I think it's one of those things where I thought it was a step back, but in hindsight, it was like 3 steps forwards.
That's great. I suppose, how long did it take you to put together that Jameson graduate video?
So it's funny. So it took me actually like 2 days.
What?
People, yeah, sure. The wedding speech video, the wedding speech I done was a day. That was a day of editing.
What?
Um,
Oh my
yeah,
god! But I
I'm
mean, I
really
suppose like, did you get family members to record the wedding one, for example, or did you actually call out to these houses yourself? So like,
the
did you
shots.
ask people?
The one of people
Yeah,
saying congratulations, Sinead and Paul.
yeah.
That was them. That was people who around the world who sent that to me. But the last part of all the family members, that was all shot for me within 2 days. Like it's funny. I'm one of these people who I feel like I get not so much anymore because my laptop's slowing down, so the actual programs take way
Mm.
longer to run. But with schoolwork and with studying, I was always someone who still managed to get it done no matter how much time I left myself. Which I'm not, which is a terrible, terrible way to do things. I am not advocating that at all. Be way more organized when it comes to schoolwork. But yeah, but I think with the thing with these ideas and the things with these videos, so like the Jameson video and the wedding video, while it didn't take too long to edit in terms of how much people think it took, I had them planned in my head for months. So I knew exactly what I wanted for the video. So it was more just getting the shots and then making sure they cut together well. Whereas I think for me, it's all about like the planning of the video. And for Jameson, I had that in my head for I'd say 2-3 weeks, even though I knew exactly what I needed to talk about. And then just the kind of shot list was in my head for 2 to 3 weeks. So that took about a day to record, and then a day to edit.
Brilliant. And how long had you been thinking, I suppose, previously to actually doing the video? When did you find out about Jameson? When was it a thing that you were like, yeah, that's the plan?
So I stumbled into a talk in, it was either second or third year for the Enterprise Society, which I was on the committee for.
Mm.
And I think it was second year because I wasn't on the committee at this stage. And I stumbled into the talk, and I remember this guy talking about his experience in the program or what the program was. And I remember being like, that sounds unreal. And then it sort of left me for a bit and didn't really think about it. And then towards the end of college, sorry, the end of the Students' Union, it kind of popped back into my head again. And I knew I still wanted it. And then people just kept asking me, what are you going to do when you finish the SU? And I just kept saying, I'm going to apply for the Jameson Graduate Program. And then people were like, "You can't put all your eggs in one basket." I was like, "Watch me." And at the time, I knew it was the only thing I really wanted to do. Otherwise, I was going to go to like Canada or something. But in terms of like graduate programs, this was the one I wanted to do. So yeah, I had it in my head, and then when I came back and the time came, and as I said, my mother is great for these type of things. So we had to. She brought me into the hotel in the town beside ours for about 2 or 3 weeks. On a Tuesday, we'd go through my written application and what needs to be done and writing it out, and she'd tell me what I need to rewrite and how I need to make it sound better. And then I obviously done the full video by myself because she wouldn't be able to she wouldn't be able to edit something on her phone, let alone a laptop. So
Of course.
yeah, so it was like the whole application process. It wasn't 2 nights; it was a good few weeks in kind of preparation. But the video was a day of shooting, day of recording. But as I said, it was all about planning beforehand, and I was planning the whole thing in my head. And I'd like to think I was probably planning it in my head for a year prior to that, because I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's probably like you look at my YouTube history. I have watched it several times. I'd watched it several times before I even thought of reaching out to you for the podcast. But like, it's entertaining. It's fun. Especially the start of it when you're playing the piano, and you're also not playing the piano, walking around. Which I'll leave people to try and figure out what that means. What I will say is, guys, just go and have a look at Podge's application
Well, what I
video
would
because
to anyone who is considering the application, the one thing is don't use mine as a blueprint for what yours should be. Like I've noticed people who are applying for the program this year and last year were so like, so does my video have to be as well edited as yours? And I always say no. Like
Mhm.
my selling point was my creativity and my ability to make content. So that's why mine was so good because that's what I'm good at. Whereas other
Mm.
people's videos were just them talking to themselves on a phone, with a photo or two appearing, and that was perfect. It's more about what you say as opposed to the production value. But of course, if your whole selling point is your creativity and your ability to make videos, it'd be weird if it was just this crappy video put together. Um, but it's certainly like it's not the production we're looking for. We're looking for the person. So
Yeah.
if there is anyone listening who wants to go for the program, do not let the video throw you away at all. Just put something together and get your foot in the door, and it's assessment centers and everything after that that really gets you the job.
And I suppose in terms of that kind of application process, um, what exactly is entailed there? You upload the video, so you've got your video application, and then you have the written application. Can you take me through that process?
Yeah, so it's an online written application with questions such as your basic details, your university, what you studied, and opportunity to kind of talk about yourself, your experiences, and why you think you're best suited, and why you think you have that serious character we're looking for. And then
Mm.
followed with that is a 2 minute video application, which you get to showcase that serious character and who you are, because we're not degree specific in terms of who we are hiring. We hire the person as opposed to what they studied. And that's the whole premise of serious character wanted. We want those who have that serious character we're looking for. Like we have people on the program who've studied archaeology, culinary arts, drama, literature, and obviously marketing and business and languages. So we have a huge range of diverse backgrounds and courses that people have studied. And then when you submit your application, applications do close on the 24th of February 2021. But when you do
Of
submit your
course.
application, we will go through all the complete applications and then we narrow them down to invite those to assessment centres. And assessment centres typically will take place in March. And there's 2 rounds of assessment centres, and they typically run in with a group assignment, an individual presentation, and an individual interview. Now, of course, with COVID, that's we're monitoring that at the moment and seeing what way will we need to adapt it to an online setting. And we will know long before the application deadline is in. But typically that's what it would work. And you do round one in March and round two in April or May, and then you find out late June if you have the job, which will then start in end of July.
Wow, it's kind of a quick enough turnaround there, isn't there? I suppose you're in your second year now, Podge. So you've seen, I suppose, 2 rounds of graduates come into the program, and I assume you've obviously connected with some who are either out of it and still with. I suppose they might have moved on to you know other companies, or they might very well have stuck with you. But what I'd like to know is, I suppose, what are the ingredients to a serious character? What are the kind of attributes and qualities there for someone?
Yeah, so the thing is, we're not looking for a serious character. We're looking for someone with serious character. So to us, it's
Of
like
course.
it's a personality trait as opposed to a certain person. And like I suppose to sum up what serious character is to us is we're looking for someone who's, who could be innovative, creative, who can be a great working professional and get their job done, go that extra mile, be courteous to employees, and work well in a professional setting. But then at the end of the day, have a bit of crack, have a bit of fun, because you're representing the serious whiskey that doesn't take itself too seriously, and we want our graduates to be the embodiment of that, really. And to go out and represent, have that quintessential wink and a smile. So that's what we mean by that serious character, someone who can be a great working professional, but have a bit of fun too, and enjoy themselves when on the job.
Brilliant. And I suppose I'm interested in the sense that did you ever go abroad with the program, or I suppose because you're obviously your strengths were in the kind of creative side, your strengths were in the kind of content side. In your first year, did you go abroad kind of on sales, or were you always kind of that creative point?
No, so like you can use, like we have people who are able to use their creativity in all the markets that they're in.
Mm,
You don't have to just be based in Ireland, and we wouldn't really typically advertise positions in Ireland because while there is two grad positions, sorry, there's two brand ambassadors in Ireland and there's two office roles. The rest of all our brand ambassadors are spread out internationally.
mm,
Every year they pick one graduate to be the marketing assistant to the program. So their role is essentially the brand ambassador of the program itself. So to go around to universities and help recruit the new intake for brand ambassadors. And that was my role last year, which was fantastic. And I spent the year kind of in the office and going around to different colleges and promoting the program. And that was absolutely incredible. And then typically what would happen is that person in that role would then rotate to be a brand ambassador in an international market. Because the role is, it's an initial 13-month contract. The first month is a training and development program in Dublin. Then the following 12 months is your international placement. And then there's an opportunity for the 12 to 24-month extension. And this would be typically performance dependent. And then you would rotate to another market for those 2 years. So it's 3 years with two international placements, which is really cool. And so I would have rotated to a market this year for 2 years. But with COVID-19, there was, we didn't take on any new brand ambassadors or any new graduates this year, and our third years were offered a fourth year in the program, but everyone had to stay in their same market. So I'm still in this role this year as the marketing assistant, but hopefully
hmm
next year I will then be rotational to an international market somewhere.
That'll be class.
Yeah.
I suppose traditionally, because we've seen from the Instagram takeovers, what is the story now, considering a worldwide pandemic? Because usually, the graduate program internationally entails sales and kind of relationship management with different bars, and then event management, kind of bringing all those different, I suppose, barmen and bar women, or what are bar people called? Bar trade people, bar personnel. What do you call
Bartenders.
them? Bartenders, that's the word. Yeah, of course. You'd bring bartenders to an event, and you'd liquor them up with Jameson, and you tell them all about the culture and the story, and then of course, there's some really cool art pieces there, whatnot. But now, considering the world has changed so much,
Mm.
what does the future of that program look like then? Or is it going to be someone going to Spain, for example, and just sitting in an office all day long on Zoom, or what?
No,
Like,
so
what?
that's the thing. I mean, like it's very market by market dependent, and each market's done an individual kind of assessment because, like some markets, like Australia, New Zealand, or Thailand, like it's business as usual there. They've had zero cases in the last like 2 months, and the bars are back open, and the trade is back open, so everything is kind of back to normal there. Obviously, with some restrictions in terms of masks and social distancing. So it really depends on what market the brand ambassador is based out of, and no, your job wouldn't be being behind a desk on Zoom. I mean, your job is to be on trade and make new relationships every day. So it'd be counterintuitive to have you behind Zoom all day. So what again? It would just be market. It'd be done on a case by case basis by market. But the company would never send you somewhere that would be unsafe. But at the moment, we're full steam ahead in terms of this year's a new intake for graduates.
That's good to know. And that closing date again, Podge, is
The
February.
24th of February 2021 at 1 p.m. Wednesday, the 24th of February at 1 p.m.
1 p.m. Okay, right, very good. Maybe there'll be an influx of them coming in at around 12:30. Okay, that's perfect. I suppose before we kind of move on, we'll kind of end up and do a rapid question round. Quickly, the podcast.
Yes.
You do your own podcast, Podge. Episodes, kind of where can people find you? You're big on Instagram.
Yes, so I'd say if you are to, probably Instagram would be the go-to, or TikTok as well. Although I haven't made videos for that in ages, but TikTok or on any, I suppose, podcasting platform, the podcast, pretty easy name, thankfully. But if someone was to go somewhere first, I'd probably direct them to my Instagram. Yeah.
Cool stuff. Podge Henry on Instagram, guys. All right. I have a very short few questions here for rapid questions around Podge. Fondest memory of DCU?
Oh, Jesus. I remember, I know it's so weird, but I remember we had one really unreal party one night in our accommodation second year in Hampstead, and everyone was there, all our friends, and it was just one of those nights that just kind of got out of hand, but in the best possible way, and it was just so much fun. Someone actually let off a fire extinguisher in our apartment, which we got in trouble for. But as a whole, it was just one of those memories that all my friends were there, and it was before that time where everyone goes abroad and like splits and separates. It was just one of those memories that I'll always remember.
Would you rather work from home or in the office?
Office all day, like not even a question.
Would you rather work alone or in a team?
In a team. Depending on the job, but I like working with people. I like working in a team.
When are you most productive?
When I'm under pressure.
Is Coppers any crack?
Yeah, but like it gets old and it gets old, but listen, you're always going to end up there. Well, actually, when it opens, but like you're always going to end up there, no matter how much you hating it. And there's a time period where I wish I was never found there, but yet there I was. So look, it's an Irish institute, if anything. So I'm gonna have to say yes.
Brilliant. Barry's or Lions?
Lions. Oh God, why? Whoever drinks Barry's, get out of here.
If you could have any other job for just one day, what would it be?
Oh, Graham Norton. That's my dream job. Graham Norton, not his job, not his actual show, but like that job is my dream job. Or a stripper just for the laugh.
Nice, fair enough. All right, yeah, a bit different there, but you could be a stripper who has their own like talk show, or their own. Yeah.
Strip chats, we call it.
Yeah, your monologue could be you on an actual like a pole or something. Well, we'll talk about it after this.
We'll talk numbers later.
If you could say one thing to your younger self, what would it be?
Oh, don't care about anyone's opinion, you absolute idiot, and just do what you want to do and stop being so stupid. Oh, like I've thought about this so much time. Just genuinely do that musical you want to do, make that video you want to do, and stop caring about people because you're not going to talk to most of them for the rest of your life. So just cop on.
Yeah, I think I may have taken that one a bit too personally.
I think about that all the time.
Podge, I have kept you for a very long time, which I appreciate very much.
No problem at all, Jack. It was very enjoyable. I love being a guest on someone else's for once.
Yeah, no, I think you've been interviewed by 2 Jacks now in the space of possibly a month.
I know, all the Jacks.
Yes, the Jackcast. Oh, that's actually it. Oh my God! Why didn't I? No, yeah, no. I'm gonna save that for afterwards too. Actually, no, I can't do that. Actually, no, I could do that because it's very different to podcast. No, I might do that actually. Regardless, my internal thoughts are coming out. Yeah, Podge, thank you very much, and best of luck with the rest of the graduate program, and hopefully you get to go abroad next year with it.
Thank you very much, Jack. Really appreciate you having me on.